This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
Were you surprised? At least I was about this. The lack of religiosity that she intertwined into her questioning, her lines of questioning on cross in this trial. She didn't present any sort of defense. I was kind of surprised by that. But she didn't go into crazy territory. And when she did talk about Nephi from the Book of Mormon, it wasn't in any sort of extreme ways. It was just, why do you think I'm only going down the road of where God commands him to kill people? There's all these other books of Nephi and all these other things that he did. Why do you think that this is the only road that I would be going down? She didn't get into zombies. She didn't even entertain these things. And I was kind of surprised by that because that's not the Lori Vallow we all know and love. It to me showed a sense of control. It showed a sense of awareness that I didn't think she had, where she knew if she went down that road, it seems it wasn't going to play well to a jury. And the jury wasn't going to see it from her perspective. I was kind of thinking she was oblivious to what the jury thought, and she was going to use it as a platform to preach. What was that? I mean, the consciousness of it was a little spooky because it made me think maybe Lori is in a little bit more control than we all think she is.
That's another interesting aspect of this, because people have gotten feedback when their ideas are considered nutty, and they know it's not going to serve them to share that, with the general public. They do seem to have the ability to control it. And even if that's what's going in their head, they don't talk about it. But I was surprised as well that, she didn't veer off into that more during the trial. But, I've mentioned this to you before, but when I was in undergrad school for psychology, I was volunteering on a mental health crisis line and, take calls in the middle of the night from suicidal people or strange people who were disturbed. And there was a man in the local community who was a medical doctor with a thriving practice. And he was a very good doctor. People liked him. He seemed normal, but he had a delusion. He had delusional disorder that the local Catholic hospital was euthanizing people. And he would call in the middle of the night when he was agitated and upset, and he would want us to take action in some way against the Catholic hospital. And so he would write letters and he would do all these, crazy things. Obviously, the Catholic hospital was not euthanizing people, but this was something he really did believe, but he was able to keep it contained and still function in a medical practice and do a decent job. So that was one of the strangest cases that I'll never forget.
I mean, and is that dangerous then to have somebody like that in the position they were in, where clearly he was separating it, for a long time, maybe forever. But the fact that he's like one whatever iota away from seemingly, I could see something going wrong in his medical practice or something, and suddenly he's, integrating some other weird belief over there, and nobody's catching on until it's too late, and he's euthanizing people or something.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it seems weird. Like it could go bad very, very fast.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have somebody with delusional disorder, should they be in medical or in medicine, or should they be? I mean, are they qualified to be in really much of anything where there could be a risk to human life?
Yeah, no, I was very concerned at the time and took it to a supervisor. And I think because of confidentiality and no imminent danger, I don't think that we could report it or, do anything. But yeah, very concerning. You don't want your doctor to be delusional. You really don't.
No. Let's talk about histrionic disorder. I know more about it too, but I don't know that the audience knows a ton about it. It's gotten thrown around a lot with Lori. I know that she was diagnosed with it as part of her whole cluster of things. Explain that better. I know grandiosity is a huge thing to it, but what is kind of the general definition of it, and how does it apply to Lori?
Yeah, people who can be very dramatic and do very big emotions, but they're very superficial. And typically, women with histrionic personality are flirtatious, and I have often thought about Lori, the way she engages with people, even the way she engaged with the police after Charles' death, and kind of flirty and giggling. There's this undercurrent of sexuality that they tend to leak, even when they get very old. You'll see, people in their 70s and 80s, and they've still got this girlish little coquettish manner.
Hmm.
And that's certainly something that I've seen with her. There were even times in court where she just kind of does this little voice and does this little flirtatious kind of routine.
Hmm.
But they can get a lot of attention because of the way that they put themselves out there in front of people. They enjoy the attention.
Yeah. And then they get the feedback loop going where it's like, oh, this works. This works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they, I mean, obviously a lot of these things are very debilitating. A lot of times people don't recognize that they have them, don't seek help, and, and the people we get pushed out of their lives, and they just kind of go from like a tornado from one place to the next until people catch on. For somebody like a Lori, I mean, obviously Lori's pretty extreme here, but anyone who sees some of these diagnoses that Lori has, and maybe they have someone in their life who has one of them or both, or God, I hope not, or all of it. But let's say you got some of them. I mean, is there much treatment? Is there ever pulling anybody back from a delusional disorder through therapy, through medication, through anything? Or sometimes is it just, look, this is the road they're on, this is how their brain works, and we don't have a way to correct it at this point?
Unfortunately, it's the latter. Yeah, we have not found really any medication that would significantly impact the delusional disorder. Unlike schizophrenia or other kinds of disorders where there's psychosis, medication can be very effective and just sort of knock the delusions and hallucinations
Hmm.
away. But with delusional disorder, that has not been proven to be true. And they're not open to therapy because if the therapist tries to give them an alternate version of reality, well, then they flush the therapist,
Hmm.
then the therapist is part of the zombie troop or whatever. They do not want to hear reality. And so they're very resistant to talk therapy. Medications don't seem to work. They're just who they are. And I think with things like narcissism and histrionic personality, I will say sometimes they can succeed in Hollywood. You know, I think you do see a lot of celebrities who
Yeah.
are very attention seeking, very sexual, very
Yeah.
flirtatious. You watch the award shows and you look at what people are wearing and you go, okay, that's a little attention seeking there.
Yeah.
But, for having somebody in your life with these qualities, you're just stuck with them. And usually it's the family members who go to therapy to go, oh my God, my sister or my mother's driving me nuts and I don't know what to do about that. And we can help the family members.
Yeah, to try and cope with what
Yeah.
they're, it's like Al-Anon, but it's for this,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Yeah, award show, like the most personality disorders under one roof at one
Yeah.
time that have not been diagnosed or accepted.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at all by some of the things that she was saying in trial? What she was trying to justify, I thought was interesting, specifically about her reactions to what took place the day that Charles was shot. Her story in court, and it seems she planned this out. Like, okay, I'm going to say this, and everyone's going to think this is great.
Mhm.
Was you do know that when someone's under a lot of stress, they get dehydrated. So that was the justification for Burger King. That and Charles had promised the kids that, oh, we're going to go get Burger King, and then he's dead. So she has to make up for that taking to Burger King, and she got water because if you're stressed, you need the water.
Mhm.
In her mind, when she's in that cell, is she thinking, damn, that's going to land good? People are going to hear that, and they're going to be like, oh, well, that explains all of it.
Exactly.
Did she think that going in, or was she just in her state just throwing things at the wall at that point?
Yeah, it shows this little cunning quality she has, this manipulation. And she comes up with these things that sound absolutely ludicrous, but I think she does convince herself, well, of course,
Hmm.
this makes perfect sense. The other thing that I thought was, well, her story, this wasn't any sort of planned killing. This was just a family tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all supposed to have empathy. Oh, how sad, a family tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
which is completely bizarre. Her hand was in all of this, in
Mm-hmm.
all these deaths.
Yeah, I mean the family tragedy. The thing is, I think she believes it's justified. The family tragedy is filled with delusion, and that's the
Mhm.
problem with it. I think she views it as a family tragedy, but I think the tragedy in her mind is that Ned Schneider is possessing Charles,
Right,
and then he has to die. It's so tragic
right.
that he had to be killed because Ned
Yeah.
Schneider is. It wasn't that your brother killed your husband
Mhm.
out of whatever that was. Let's talk about that relationship a little bit. A brother that goes to that extreme for his sister, and let's assume that there wasn't imminent danger here. I don't think Charles was attacking anybody,
Mhm.
but Alex thought this is the time to take him out, and I don't know that Alex was as delusional as she was. It's hard to know. He's dead,
Hard to know.
obviously.
Mhm.
But the fact that he was kind of her henchman, what do you think was going on there?
Really, really weird family relationship, huh? Because it sort of smacks like a cult member,
Hmm.
like somebody who is so under the control of one of these, really powerful, emotionally powerful people. And Lori and Chad certainly fit the profile of cult leaders.
Hmm.
And it's sort of like he just bought into it and was there to do their bidding and meet their needs, and found a great deal of identity from his role and felt important. It's certainly just another layer of bizarre that a brother would murder the way he did.
And there's been a lot of talk over the years because it just seems like you're too close. You're too close to your sister. This is weird where you're going. I mean, I don't have any siblings, so it's hard for me to like relate to people with siblings. But just from the outside, you look and go, okay, of course you're going to be there for your sibling. You're going to look out for them. You got their back, that sort of thing, if you're in a good relationship. But to this level, it made you really wonder what else is going on here. And there
Mhm.
had been reports from people who had, witnessed their interactions over the years at get-togethers and such. I'm sure there was green chili chicken enchiladas going on. As we know, Lori's a great cook of those. That's one of the major points we learned in this. And they allegedly, there was a lot of, faux sex play, if you will, where
Mhm.
it looked, they'd be joking and acting out sex acts on each other, brother and sister, to be funny. What the
Mhm.
hell's going on? If you're doing that, that's a little odd. Is that not? If you're doing that with your sister and not like they're doing it in public or anything, but the fact that you're even like emulating this in front of other people, that can't be healthy.
No, it's completely creepy, non-clinical word, creepy.
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah, yeah, really pathological and a huge red flag. And yet nothing about this case would surprise me. So
Yeah. Uh, when you see siblings, and I'm not even necessarily speaking about this case in general, but are there cases where you see siblings, a brother, a sister, whatever the combination may be, where that's going on, and it kind of explains some of the devoted behavior to such a weird degree, where they almost kind of take on the role of partners to each other, like what you consider like a romantic partner, but they've
mhm.
somehow deluded themselves to thinking that this is how this is. I mean, I get it. I don't get it, but you get it like out in the sticks or something where it's like, okay, this is kind of an inbred family. But the ones that are like out there, every day in real life, like Lori was, like Alex was, um, does that exist? I'm sure it does to some extent, but do we see that where there's that weird level of closeness, and somehow that's the bond that keeps them together?
Yeah, you certainly can see it, but I don't think it's as common. There's certainly incest between siblings that happens, but it's usually it's usually the older brother, significantly older brother with a little sister. Something is going on, and
Yeah,
that's traumatic.
yeah.
That ends up pushing people apart and causing chaos in the family. But to have an enmeshed, almost romantic couple bond between siblings. More rare, but yeah, it's certainly possible. And that would explain a lot of his weird devotion to her.
Yeah, it does. It certainly makes you wonder. I think we'll never know the answer to it. I know I've talked with the normal brother, the healthy one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he has said he never believed he saw that. He never thought that that was going on. But you only see so much. He wasn't super connected to a lot of them for a long period of time. So I know it makes you wonder. I know that I want to know the answer, but it certainly makes you wonder.
Yeah.
If true crime is your obsession, we've got you covered. Press subscribe now to the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today for non-stop coverage, expert insights, and in-depth analysis.